Okay guys, as you can see, we're getting ready to ride. It's finally cooled down, end of the day, and a perfect time to ride horses. Excuse about the only problem we got is horse flies. So you can see Chippy's got some battle wounds. But I do want to talk about, as we're reconditioning our horses, talk about tendon and ligament health, because that is a big concern in the sport horse industry, particularly if you're working some of the high intensity sports. That's something to think about. Now, for today, we're just actually reconditioning, so we're going to start and mostly just walk and trail ride as we work on conditioning up. So we're not adding a lot of intensity to those tendons and ligaments, but you do want to consider that as you're working with these sport horses. So protection is key when they're working in like barrels and jumping and reining and you name it. You want to protect those lower legs. As you can see on his front leg, we have on, this is a polo wrap or exercise wrap. It's just made of fleece material. You just wrap it and it goes just slightly underneath. It gives maybe a little bit support, but not really. It's about support as he's making that turn around a barrel, or if we were like jumping, he was going over jump, it protects those legs. It also helps too, before I even get started riding, it helps to add a little bit of heat to warm. We got to really kind of warm them up. It's kind of like when you do your exercise and you warm them up, it'll do the same thing and start to get those tendon ligaments aren't really the most elastic, so we need to kind of warm them up and get them a little more supple. That's another thing when you start to work your horses. A lot of people just want to get on and yeehaw. You really want to start to warm them up slowly and gradually. You know, if they're a horse you got to put on the lunge line and they just start running really consistently, you may want to, right before, just start walking them while you're leading them, rather than getting them on the lunge line and then start darting off. So again, that will help to protect. Back legs I wanted to show you, so I'm not color coordinated, but I wanted to show you something. So as you can see, these are what we call sports medicine boots. They're really, instead of doing all that extra wrapping, they're really easy to put on and off. And you can get them both for the front and hind legs. And so that's something that's really nice and easy. Again, you'll find they have different sizes, like this is a medium. So you can get them in different sizes where adjustable with those polos, you adjust as you're wrapping them. One of the big things I'll say is if you wrap them wrong, like too tight, one of the biggest problems we see in the sport horse industry is bow tendons. So again, improper wrapping can lead to that. Thank you, Chippy. Those daggum flies. But that's something, again, this might be a little bit easier for some, but you do want to purchase the right size for them. They also give whether it's left or right, so that's another thing, and whether it's rear or front. So that's extremely helpful for those. So that might be something they're a little more costly, but it is a good investment for your horses. So, and again, the protection is key for the sports. I have a horse that actually gets what we call wind puffs. It doesn't create a soundness issue, but a little bit of that swelling makes it difficulty along that fetlock in her hind legs. It makes it more difficult for her to be nimble as she's really gritting into the ground. So again, I like to put these on to just kind of supple it up, get some of that fluid that's built up kind of moving, and that's really extremely helpful. Particularly after the sport, after you do your exercise, it's essential to cool your horse down. That includes cooling those tendons and ligaments, everything. So you want to gradually walk them out. Then you can look at doing what we call just hydrotherapy, which is just rinsing the leg off with some cool water. Starting out gradually if they really got hot. You don't want to immediately go to these muscles through these legs. You want to start out kind of slow. Cool the horse off, and that's a good way too to kind of, again, get those tendons and ligaments a little more cooled off. Other things for just health-wise, a lot of times you can get liniment. One of the things that I learned, and this is in a gel form, think of liniment kind of like your Bengay and those kinds of things that you put on your legs in humans. They also have in horses. Actually, I use this stuff for myself just as much on the horses. And you can rub it down, just cup and rub down the leg with the liniment after they've worked hard. Again, you want to make sure that you evenly do both sides. So like counting down, rubbing down, let's say you put some liniment on your hand, count down, you know, like 10, 20 times, and then do the same thing on the other side. That's essential. You want to make sure it's even throughout. You do want, some of this stuff's pretty potent, so you do want to wash your hands off. If it becomes irritating, you may even want to put a glove on, okay? So liniment, cold hosing, very helpful for there. Prior to us riding our horses, when we're at the show, We'll use, this is in the sports medicine. This is done by Back and Track. So you're not going to ride with this, but when they're in the stall, not only is it going to help to protect their legs, but it's also going to start to kind of warm them up a little bit, especially if you're kind of in the cold place, and see how it sits on there. And it protects them from if they knock the stall. So again, we're protecting those lower legs. But again, this isn't for exercise. This is just while they're in the stalls. A good way of protecting those lower legs. That's so essential when you're taking care of them. Now let's say you end up having a bow tendon. Again, how do you detect for a bow tendon? You'll start to have swelling across the back of this leg. It may be a high bow, it may be more the middle, or it may even be a low bow, or it may be across the whole thing. So you constantly, every time you get done riding, want to kind of feel that leg and make sure there's no tenderness, no heat, and no swelling of any sort. Okay, so those are things you want to look for. If you do, you got to treat a bow tendon. I had one mare that had a pretty significant bow tendon, and it took her pretty much a year off of the show arena before we could get her back in and showing. So some of the things you'll do, you can buy this, is an ice pack. I don't have it frozen right now, but it goes kind of like that Back on Track, where you just wrap it around the leg after it's nice and frozen, like such. And a lot of times what they'll have you do, you've probably seen the commercial, what we call Voltaren, and that's the human side. It was prescription strength. They now have it as a medicated. It's an anti-inflammatory, so it's now non-medicated. And you can rub that a strip. This is Surpass, the horse side of it. You rub a strip down here, and that'll help to really help with those if you have a bow. So again, people say, well, can I just buy, especially now that it's over counter, that Voltaren and use that instead of the Surpass? There is some differences in there. One of the things, Surpass actually is a little stronger because it's got to go through the horse's hair. So I do not recommend buying that over the counter stuff. Same thing, I said, oh, I've used that horse liniment in that. There are some differences and you may have a reaction. So a lot of times what I find is on the horse side is it's a little more potent. So you got to be really cautious about that. So again, biggest thing is talk to your vet if you do have a bow and get a good treatment plan going. But it is something you're going to regularly have to treat once you get the bow. So if you can protect that tendon and ligament before it even starts, that'll be extremely helpful. And it'll save you a lot of time on the treatment plan, a lot of money. This is expensive, all this stuff is. And then flip side, it'll keep your horse back in, keep it in the show arena. So again, tendon ligament health is extremely important. Preventative measures are essential, especially like Chippy as you're starting to get back in the conditioning program. Don't overwork them. Start very gradual. Be monitoring constantly. Do those palpations after you get done riding, and that can help in that preventative process of avoiding such things as bow tendons.